Alright, today we're going to be rebuilding the motor on this 2016 CRF250R. We got all the parts right here, piston, the rings, and the pin, gaskets, stuff like that. Everything here. Step one is to get down to the motor, so we got to take the shrouds, tank, seat, we got to get the air boot off, all that junk. One tip is to always put the bolts back in where you got them from, so you don't lose them. Time for the tank to come off. Tank's off. It was just a little clip, and then there's like a wire that was holding it down. Here's a little tab that comes off that tank. Alright, so now we've got the tank off, shrouds off. So we gotta look at the head right here. Next, what I think I'm gonna do is first, gotta pop this thing out. It's a spark plug cap. I think we're gonna start moving some of this electrical stuff out of the way here. Moving it around.
Here's a more inside look at what I'm doing here.
Alright, next I'm going to go right down in here and pop the exhaust header off. There's two nuts holding the muffler on, and then there's a clamp down by the kickstart gear that you gotta just loosen. And then this thing, the muffler comes off. And then I'm putting these two nuts back on the studs that came off, so I don't lose them. Alright, so next we've got a radiator hose attached to the head here, so we gotta drain the coolant out of here. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but right here on this bottom one there's a brass or copper screw or washer, and that's the one that you're gonna drain the coolant out of. And I'm gonna be reusing this coolant, so I'm just using a milk carton to hold it. I washed it out first. Spilled a good bit there, but we're gonna clean it up. Alright, so we got that coolant drained. It's over there in that container. But next, I think we're gonna go ahead and pop this valve cover off and start tearing down this motor. So the valve cover is just held on by two 10 millimeter bolts. Two bolts, and then this breather hose has to come off too, and then this thing should just come off. Right, so it's stuck on the spark plug thing a little bit, but there it is. After this, we got to loosen up the cam chain. So the cam chain tensioner is right here. This is in the way, so we gotta use some wrenches for this. These are just 8 millimeter bolts. Alright, so there's your cam chain tensioner. Just gonna hold on to this, put it over there. I'm gonna go ahead and pull these engine hanger bolts off. Oh shoot. Alright, so now there's 4 bolts that I'm gonna pop out. I believe they're 10. Yep. And you want to loosen these in a crisscross pattern. Alright, so you see these are 2 different sizes, and the longer one, I believe, went in the front, the shorter one went in the back. So longer in the front, shorter in the back. When I put these on the table, I'm going to put them facing this way so I know. Alright, so one thing we want for this job is some metal wire so the cam chain doesn't fall into the bottom of the motor. So just have this ready for whenever that cam chain comes off. Okay, so what we're going to do is pull these off. When you pull these off, be careful because there's oftentimes, actually there is a small little pin or like a thing right here. I'll show you. This is what I was talking about with those, with these little tiny things and these little, whatever, I don't know what they're called, but careful for those because sometimes they'll be on the cam chain. They'll stay on there. You always want to make sure that you have they have a R and arrow, so we know this is the right one. But yeah, and the intake, the IN stands for intake valves, so that's toward the back of the bike. Alright, I got the camera mounted on the handlebars here, so if I just randomly bump it, then you know why. Alright, so those 2 little pin or like clip things went right here along here. So next we're gonna pull the cam chain off, but this is kind of how we're gonna do it. It's gonna come up. Alright, so what I'm doing right now is pulling the cam chain off. What we can do is we can slide these whatever you call them, bearings off, and then the cam chain will come off of the cam shaft. Like that. And your camshaft is free. And then this is where the wire comes into play. Just gonna move it right here for now. Put it on the side because it's gonna have to slide up and over this wire. So after that, we have 2 more bolts holding down the head, and then there's 2 pinch bolts on the side over here. I don't know if there's any over there, but that's the next step. While you're at this step, this is where your valves are. So here's the valve bucket. So there's the shim and everything. So if you wanted to reshim your valves, you could do it right here, but mine are in spec, so I'm just gonna leave them. Alright, also at this step, there's 2 more things we have to do also. We have to remove right here this radiator hose, and then we have to remove the ECU boot right here, or we have to remove the intake boot right here that's going into the head. So there's a little screw right down in there that loosens the hose clamp, and then it just slides right off. There it is. It's off right there. So that's out of the way. Next up is intake. Alright, with the help of 2 people, head came right off. Everything looks pretty good. Definitely needed a new top end for sure. Piston's got loads of carbon on it. 2 things I didn't mention is there's 2 pins right here. You want to make sure you grab those like this. You want to make sure you grab those out of the cylinder. Alright, next up is, let's see, there's some 8mm bolts just around the cylinder. You're gonna have to get a ratchet in there. This is the only bolt that goes right in there. And now cylinder head should just pop right off. Alright, so we got the cam chain guide and the cylinder, and be careful of these pins again right here. Cylinder actually looks really good. We got the pin right here, and then one of them actually fell down right on, I got lucky, fell down right on top of the crankshaft. So I was able to just grab it. I was close. Got it though, that one went in the motor. Actually, the piston does not look bad at all. Actually looks really good. I'm surprised. There's a lot of carbon on the top, but other than that, it looks really good. So the camshaft, or the cam chain, I'm just gonna kind of drop that down in there and lay this up to the side so I can get in on the clips right there. Alright, when you're pulling the rings out, you only have to do it on one side, then you can pull the pin through. Circle clip is out, I just used a pair of pliers, popped right out. And then now, do is slide that pin through. Alright. Like that. The piston is off. I'm gonna clean this piston off and see how good it looks after I clean it up. Alright, so right here we have the old piston versus the new one. And when I was taking it out, I only took this pin out because then the pin just slides, or this circlip out because then this pin, the pin just slides out and then this one stays in. So we have all the new stuff. We're gonna throw it on here. First thing I'm gonna do is throw the pin into the right side of the piston. These pistons are directional. The little dot on here faces towards the intake, so that's the back of the bike. But I'm gonna go ahead and try and slide this in. When you're putting all this stuff back together, make sure you have like engine oil or something, or engine assembly lube, just to keep everything geared up so you don't seize it right off the start. So I have some oil right here, so we definitely want to do it to the pin. To the clips, it doesn't really matter that much, but I'm still going to put some in there. Yes, finally. There we go. Clip is finally in. What I'm going to do, throw some lubricating oil. I'm going to oil up the inside of here. So there's 4 different rings. There's 2 thin ones, an oil ring, and then a thick one. So the way these go on is there's a thin one, then the oil ring, and another thin one, then the thick one. So you just kind of, and the thin ones go on, there's 2 layers. Thin ones go on the bottom. Put all 3 rings together before putting them into the actual piston itself. And then last ring is a compression ring, the big one. I don't think there's no specific way it goes on, it just goes on. Yep, that goes. And that goes. Alright, all the rings are in. I'm just going to put some lubricating oil on. This pin is all lubed up. Here's our new pin. It's going to get lubed up on the bike too. Alright, let's go throw this thing back on the bike. Alright, so now it's time to throw the new piston in. One thing I'm going to make sure you do, so you don't drop something down into the bottom end, is let's say, throw a bunch of rags like around here like this. stuff it full like that. And then let's get all the stuff. So I can do this. In like that. Are you joking? Dang it. That's freaking annoying. I covered up the piston, but the circlip went in there, so I'm gonna have to drain the oil and then take this cover off. Okay. After about an hour of getting that cover off, finally got that pin out of there and got it on the piston. So we're going to go ahead and throw the head back on, or the cylinder, sorry. We're going to have to go through this with the cam chain, so I'm just going to do that now. Alright. The 2 pins are in. There you go. Alright, we're going to throw our gasket on, and then it's time for the head to go on. Like that. Alright, the 2 pins go next. There we go. And you're back on. There we go, it's on. Alright, cylinder head is on. Now we're gonna get our 4 big studs and throw them in. We got our 4 big bolts right here that hold on the cylinder and the head. So we're just gonna pop these in. Alright, so I put the camshaft and the cam chain back on, and the way you set the timing is on the camshaft right here. Let's see if it'll focus. There's a little notch in that lines up right here, that lines up with the cylinder head here. So if we line that up, and if you go down to the flywheel here, focus, there's a little line with T, which means top dead center, and you see that little arrow right here? So you line those up, and that's when you know that your timing is set properly. So we're going to go ahead and tighten this camshaft back on here, and then put the valve cover back on. Alright. Everything's working good, so that's always a good sign. Now we can I'm going to throw the stator back on and then start getting the rest of valve cover and exhaust and stuff put back on. So one thing you want to really make sure is on there good is the intake boot. So we're going to, in fact, I'm going to push back down on the subframe here. Yep. Alright, everything's on. These valve cover bolts, they don't have to be very tight. They just, I'm kind of torquing it just by feel. Before I forget, I'm going to throw this clutch lever, your clutch system back on here, because I guarantee I'll forget it. Alright, so got our two engine hangers here. They are side specific. They're a tad different, I believe. This one goes right here, and this one's for the other side. So go ahead and get these thrown on. Alright, do the one on the other side. Alright, so we're almost done with this top end rebuild here. We got the valve cover back on, all the hose clamps for the radiators are back on. All we got to do is throw the pipe, the tank, the seat, and the shrouds on, and I believe that is all. The pipe has got these two bolts right here that just come off, and then there's a little clamp right here that holds on to the rest of the muffler. But yeah, we'll get this thing on. Alright, so pipe is on, all bolted up. The only things we have left are shrouds, seat, cam chain tensioner. I gotta do that. And then gas tank, and that's it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that cam chain tensioner in there before I forget. Alright, so cam chain tensioner is installed. And we're about ready to go. So, time to get the tank on. Alright, so it's finally time the tank can go back on. So, everything's ready. Got everything back on. Cam chain tensioner. It took a minute to get it to be able to be tensioned, or to set the tensioner, because this was kind of getting in the way, so I had to take that off. I'll have to bolt that back on. And then we can go ahead and get our tank back on and get this thing fired up after we gotta put oil, and then we gotta put that coolant back in. So I'll let you know as soon as we get this thing ready. Alright, gas tank is back on. We got coolant, we got oil. So if we did everything right, she should fire up. She runs. Alright, let's get this thing back fully together. the whole bike is back together. I hope. I think I've got everything. She looks good. So I'm gonna go do a little warmer up, get a heat cycle in to break in the motor. Everything's tight. I think we're good. No extra parts, which is good. Oh, I might need to put the shifter on, but yeah, I'll come back as soon as I get this heat cycle done. Alright, so I just went down for a little ride around the driveway, and it's running really good. I adjusted the idle a little bit, and just gonna give it a heat cycle, let it break in a little bit, and then let it cool down completely. So that's pretty much it on how to do a full top-end rebuild on a CRF250. I believe year's like a really low year, all the way up to 17, like I said earlier, or the Unicam designs. It's going to be similar for most 4-strokes with the cam chain and everything like that, but that's pretty much it.